Hi everyone, and welcome back to our second video on the Learning to Fly series. In this video we're going to be discussing attitudes and movements and straight and level flight. Very important lessons to learn, and it will really teach the fundamentals of controlling the aircraft in different situations. So let's go ahead and we'll get started. So just a quick review of the previous video. So in the last one we did everything you need to know kind of to get in the air. The biggest thing for today I think will be a review of the trim. So anytime you have force on the controls, you should be trimming. So let me just do a quick example here. So right now I have the aircraft pretty much trimmed out, but if I purposely untrim the aircraft, so in order to maintain my altitude I have to apply back pressure on the controls, and I can feel it with my on my joystick. So what that means, I'm pulling back, I'm applying a force to the controls, so I need to get rid of that force. So in order to do that I use my nose up trim, and I trim nose up until that force is gone. I no longer need to be holding that force the entire time. It takes some adjustment, and it's a combination of getting the right amount of nose up. If you go too far nose up, then you got to use the nose down trim, etc., etc. So I think I have it pretty much back to normal here. So let's go ahead and start with our first exercise, which is going to be attitudes and movements. So attitudes are all about how the aircraft is in relation to the horizon. So we're just going to go ahead and do a quick lookout here just to make sure there's no traffic or anything in the area. So using our quick views that we had set up from before, just going to look to the left. Looks good. So you can see that looks good. Looks good. Alright, so we are all trimmed out. So this is going to represent what's called our cruise attitude. So if we look at the angle here on the horizon, just have a visual image of this for our airplane. We're not climbing, we're not descending. The aircraft is pretty stable right now. We're not turning, we're not banked or anything. So this represents cruise attitude for this power setting and speed. Obviously, if you change your power setting or speed, this attitude, cruise attitude, will change, and we'll discuss that a little bit later. So first things first, we're going to talk about nose up and nose down attitudes. So in order to create these attitudes, we need to use our elevator. So pressing forward and backwards on the control, or pulling back on the controls. So let's go ahead and I'll show you a nose up attitude. I'll just do a gentle one to start off. So we pull back on the controls, trying to keep my wings level. So this would be maybe a gentle nose up. You can see the nose is almost touching the horizon. See, we are climbing. We are gaining altitude. And you'll notice as the airspeed goes down, you're going to need more and more force on the controls. Alright, so let's go ahead and we're going to bring back the aircraft to the cruise attitude. So remember that angle from before? Kind of like here. We're not going to trim at this point. We're just going to let the airspeed increase while we hold the cruise attitude. And if we do it correctly, the airspeed should go back to what it was before, because we didn't touch the power. It just takes a little bit of time. Alright, so we're almost back to what we were at before, which is great. So you can the speed return to about 100. Might have to make slight adjustments to the trim, but that's fine. There we go. So next we're going to try a medium nose up attitude, so let's go ahead. So we'll stop at gentle for a second. So this was kind of gentle here. Let's go up to medium now, so the nose is slightly above the horizon. Try to hold it there. A little bit more back pressure. As you slow down, you're going to need more and more. And let's go ahead and go back to the cruise. So somewhere around here. And meanwhile, while I'm doing this, I'm trying to keep my wings as level as possible. And you can occasionally check left and right to make sure they're about the same height above the horizon. So we're holding it in this cruise attitude. Airspeed's going back to normal. There we go. So eventually it'll go back to about 100, but I'm going to show you a steep nose up attitude. So here we go. We're going to go up. This was gentle. This is about medium. And now we're going to go a little bit further up to steep. That's pretty steep. You can see airspeed starting to go down very fast. So let's go back to the cruise attitude. And we're going to hold it there. And we're going to watch our airspeed increase back to normal. Alright, so that was nose up. Let's just talk about nose down now. So nose down, we can set up that attitude using the controls and pushing it forward slightly. So let's go ahead with a gentle nose down. And let's go back to cruise. Alright, let's go ahead and do a medium nose down. So here was gentle. This is about medium right here. Good, now let's go back to cruise. Again, I'm not trimming because the airplane was already trimmed before. I'm just using pressure to keep this cruise attitude right here. And eventually the speed will return and the airplane will be trimmed correctly. Alright, let's try a steep nose down now. So let's go ahead. This is gentle, about medium, and a little bit more. That's steep right there. Look at all the ground. You can see, wow, okay, let's go back to the cruise attitude. Again, you'll need a lot of forward pressure because the speed is so high right now. So the airplane wants to climb. It has all this energy built. But we don't want it to climb, so let's hold that pressure, hold that cruise attitude, and you'll see eventually the speed is going to drop back down to what it was before. Alright, so that's it for the pitch attitudes. Next we're going to discuss bank attitudes. Alright, so for banked attitudes, we're going to be using the ailerons, so the left and right movements on the control, to get ourselves into these banked attitudes. So first things first, do a quick lookout. we're all good. So we're going to start to the left here. So we're going to start with a gentle bank to the left. And somewhere around there. So as you can see, this angle with the horizon. And you notice that our attitude indicator is showing a bank to the left. It replicates what you see outside. But try not to look too much at that. While we're in the bank, you're trying to keep the same kind of cruise attitude that you had before. It might be slightly higher, but very similar to what we had. And you're trying to keep the same angle. So if you notice that it's starting to increase, try to bring it back to what it was before. Something like this. Alright, let's go back. So in order to do that, in order to roll out, you need the opposite aileron. So a little bit to the right, back to this cruise attitude. Alright, so let's go ahead and try medium bank now. So this was gentle. Roll a little bit further. And we're trying to keep this same angle, a little bit higher. Right around there, that looks good. And that reflects us in the bank to the left. So let's go ahead and roll out back to wings level, back to the cruise attitude, looking at our wings. That one's a little high, there we go. And we're back to this cruise attitude. Let's go ahead into a steep bank. So we look where we want to turn. Very important in a real airplane, but in the sim it's sometimes easier just to do this. So there was medium. Let's go a little bit further. There's steep right there. And you're going to notice, in order to keep it level, you're going to need a little bit of back pressure on the controls. So don't get too far. There we go. Something like this. So you can see the nose is just above the horizon. And then back to wings level. Cruise, back to cruise attitude. There we go. Alright, so let's start with some banked attitudes to the right now. So let's go ahead and do a gentle bank to the right. Go. So you can see how the view or the land looks a little different because we're sitting on the left side of the aircraft. So left and right banks are going to look a little bit different. Back to cruise. Let's go to a medium now. So this is gentle. Let's go to medium. A little bit further. Perfect. Now back to cruise. Right around there. And let's try a steep bank to the right. Need a little bit of back pressure on the controls for this one. There we go. And back to cruise. Very good. Okay, so those were banks to the left and right. Now we're going to combine two together, so pitch and bank. So let's go ahead and we'll do just a gentle nose up with a gentle left bank. So we'll start with the pitch first. So let's go up to gentle, which was kind of right around here. And once we're established, let's go gentle left. And we're trying to hold this same attitude right here the whole time. And let's go back to cruise. So roll the wings level first. We'll keep that pitch in there. And now let's drop the nose back to cruise. And let's try one to the right. Alright, so we're gonna let the speed build up a little bit first. That's probably okay. So here we go. Gentle nose up. Gentle bank to the right. back to wings level, and back to cruise attitude. And again, the speed will build up in a little bit. And I'll let the speed build up, then I'll be back with some more things. Alright, so I'm lined up here on this road. I repositioned the aircraft. And we're now going to discuss yawing movements. So yaw is controlled using the rudder pedals. So I'm going to start off, I'll show an example of what yaw is. So I'm going to go ahead and just apply some left rudder. And we're going to watch to see where the nose goes in relation to this road here. So let's go ahead. I'm going to just step on the left rudder. So you can see the nose kind of moved left. So let's go back and we'll get set up on this road again. Alright, so let's go ahead and step on the right rudder. See the nose moves to the right. And we'll go back. And we're going to climb up a little bit because we're losing altitude. So there's a couple different other times that we need to control the yaw. Anytime you make big power changes, you're going to need some rudder input with that, especially on takeoff. I'll give you a quick example of that now. So we're at full power, and a good indication of what's going on with your yaw is this little ball here. So wherever this ball goes, you want to kind of step on the ball. So if the ball moves to the right, you want to apply some right rudder. If the ball moves left, you want to apply a left rudder, and you're trying to keep it within the black lines, the little box there. So right now we're at full power. I'm going to go ahead and just go right to power idle, flight idle. So let's go ahead and do that and just watch what happens to that black ball. 3, 2, 1. So it did move a little bit to the left. So again, you would probably need a bit of left rudder to counteract. In the sim, it's not that pronounced, but in a real airplane, that would be very important. Another time you would need it if you're in a turn. So you want to lead any aileron movements with a bit of rudder. So if we're doing left, you want to use a bit of left rudder. It's in the turn to keep it coordinated. The term is coordinated. So if that ball is in the center, we're coordinated. There we go. So it's very hard. I don't really have rudder pedals. On my joystick there's a twisting movement which controls the yaw. So it's very hard for me. A very delicate maneuver. Alright, so we're back at about 3,500 feet. And we're going to discuss straight flight. So straight flight is used when you're trying to get to a point in the distance. So in this case, there's like a little river that comes in the distance. So our goal is to keep a straight line to that point. So in order to start things off, you want to be in a nice cruise attitude, and your wings should be level, right? And what you're doing is you're just making small little corrections to keep your track, the path over the ground, straight to that point. Now this can be a little bit difficult if there's any wind, because the wind will actually be pushing you off course. But essentially we're just keeping our heading towards that point. And again, you're making small corrections. If you see that we're moving away from that point. Make sure your wings are level and you're moving back towards where you want to end up. Right on. So that's straight flight. You're going towards a point that you picked in the distance in a straight line. Alright, so now we're going to discuss level flight. So level flight, we're maintaining altitude. Well, a good starting point is to make sure we're in the nice cruise attitude that we had before. And we can confirm that our altitude is not increasing. This is our VSI, so it shows us the trend of whether we're climbing or descending. Now, keep in mind this has a bit of a delay on it, so you can't really just stare at this the whole time. You're going to have to be monitoring everything. The biggest part is getting an attitude where you're not climbing and really referencing that attitude for the whole time. So what's going to happen? Let's say we're pretty much level here, but if I start to slow down, let's say I want to slow down for some reason, I just reduced my power. And what's going to happen? The nose automatically is going to want to drop because the aircraft wants to kind of preserve its energy. So in order to keep our level flight, we need to apply some back pressure on the controls. And you're going to adjust your attitude. It's going to be a little bit nose up until we stop descending or climbing, whatever it may be. Once you're at that attitude, so for this power setting at this speed, something like this might work. Once you achieve that, you're going to trim it out. So I'm applying back pressure on the controls. I'm going to apply nose up trim until that force is gone. It takes a lot of kind of tweaking. There we go. You can see our speed is slower, and we are somewhat maintaining level flight. Right, so let's go ahead and we're going to apply full power now. And what's going to happen is the nose is going to want to go up because it wants to maintain that speed that we trimmed for. So we need to be able to push that nose down as the airspeed increases. So this was we're getting close to the original cruise attitude that we had. The aircraft's still going to want to climb. It's going to want to climb. Still wants to climb. So more forward pressure. This was kind of like the original cruise attitude. You can see as the airspeed builds up even more, the nose is going to have to get pushed down even further to prevent the climb. And when you feel like you can't really push any harder, that's when you should start to trim. There. I trimmed too much, so make it some adjustments with your controls and then trim it out. There. So this is the cruise attitude for like full power. You can see it's a little bit more nose down. Speeds increase. So let's go ahead and we're going to go back to the 2300 RPM setting. And as I do that, eventually the speed's going to start to decrease. As it does that, you're going to want to go back to that original cruise attitude and then trim it out. The directional gyro. Okay, so that's interesting. So what that's saying is that this is our compass. Let's add some power back in there. 2300. There you go. This thing is our compass. It's not aligned to our heading, so yeah, it's showing maybe 0.85 or so. So let's go ahead and turn this guy. Nope. the other way. There we go. Somewhere around there. Good enough. Alright, so that's pretty much it for level flight. And I talked about the compass a little bit too, so every kind of 15 minutes make sure you're keeping an eye on that to make sure it's set properly, that they match. You can use this little knob here to adjust it.